Welcome to the Law Firm Lab by MB Law Firm Consulting.
Welcome to the Law Firm Lab by MB Law Firm Consulting, the show where we explore how law firms grow smarter, scale sustainably, and lead with clarity. I'm Evan Mack, handing the mic over to Miss Margaret Burke, who will be hosting going forward.
Thank you so much, Evan. Hi, I'm so excited to be here today. I'm Margaret Burke, and today we're kicking off this series by introducing the voices behind the vision, Laurin and Kirsty, both lawyers and legal consultants with MB Law Firm Consulting and part of our fabulous team. They bring deep expertise in helping small and mid-sized law firms across the country strengthen operations, culture, leadership, and they help our clients prepare for strategic growth. With backgrounds in the practice of law, business development, finance, technology, change management, they've both seen firsthand what makes firms thrive and what holds them back. This is the Law Firm Lab. So first, some introductions. First, we have Kirsty. Kirsty is a seasoned attorney and law firm leader whose deep knowledge of legal operations, real estate conveyance, and firm management makes her a powerhouse in this space. She has run her own firm. She has led through major transitions, managed everything from HR to high-stakes transactions, and brings both a strategic mind and a sharp legal acumen to every role she takes on. When Kirsty's client cape is hanging in her closet, she enjoys time with her family, as well as exploring her passion for wine. Next, we have Laurin. Laurin brings a dynamic mix of legal and operational experience to the table. A former trust and estates attorney, Laurin went on to serve as experience director, for USA 500 clubs, working closely with attorneys nationwide. She specializes in helping law firms grow with intention through smart systems, strategic transitions, and leadership development. Laurin has a rare ability to combine analytical thinking with creativity, and her clients value her thoughtfulness. She has a results-driven mindset and is a steady leader, both in the office and, believe it or not, in the equestrian world, where she's a national and world champion Morgan horse rider. And I will add, she had a big success yesterday, so kudos to you, Laurin.
Thank you.
So Kirsty and Laurin, I am so excited to have you both here today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Yay. So first, I'm going to start by asking you both a question. I would like to know, what is the worst advice you have ever received? Laurin, I'll start with you.
There's a lot to choose from, but one of the worst pieces of advice I ever received was from a partner at a firm who told me I should not waste my time networking, that it was a fool's errand, and that the way that you develop clients is by doing good work. And that's all you need to do. Just do good work, and you don't need to network or know people, and you'll develop a big client base.
Wild. And we've all heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
Kirsty, what about you? Can you beat that bad piece of advice?
Don't think I can beat Lauren's, but I was told once upon a time that if you're not working 18 hours a day, what are you doing with your time? Goes back to those old traditional law firm, the old guard mentality. Yeah.
Wow. Times have certainly changed, as we know, thankfully. You know, everyone here knows, and this actually comes up a lot with our clients and in conversations, that people and experiences really shape the culture of a law firm for good and for the bad. So from both of your consultant experience, how does firm culture impact client service and retention?
So I have a really strong feeling towards having a good firm culture, because once you have that internal alignment, the external translates so easily over to the clients and they experience it so much better. So once you have that internal team cohesion, communication, anything of that nature really translates to a client service and a client deliverable, and the clients can feel it. So team culture is really, really important.
I view team culture as part of the foundation of a firm. If your foundation isn't solid, your product's not going to be solid in terms of what you can offer for clients, but also when it comes to retaining your team and retaining talent within the firm. If people don't feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves, they won't feel a sense of loyalty towards the firm. So if you can really develop strong culture within the firm so that everybody understands the mission, the vision, you're operating as one collective team, everything is stronger and better as a result of that. And clients can feel it, to Kirsty's point. It's very clear when there's a strong team versus one that is disconnected. There's communication issues. They're not all on the same page. Clients pick up on that, and often they don't want to stay with that firm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true what both of you is saying. And we see it a lot with clients that often they come to us with challenges and they don't say it's culture, but a very high percent of the time, the discussion does lead towards culture because that is the basis of a law firm. It's their people and it's the culture.
Mhm.
So another thing that I'd love to hear both of your feedback on is for firms that are looking to be intentional about shaping their culture, where should they start? And what are a few quick wins that they can implement right away?
It's such a difficult question because the quick wins are generally felt from a financial perspective. So I find that when we look at the bonus incentives and the bonus structures of a law firm, that you find your quickest results. And the reason being is you generally want to incentivize the behavior you want to see emulated in your staff members and in your team. So that'll give you your quickest turnaround. However, that being said, we have had clients in the past who don't have that financial budget to be able to see that quick turnaround. I know Lauren has a differing opinion in that respect.
Mhm.
Yes. So, agreed, right? The if you've got the funds available, compensation is really the easiest way that you show your team, your staff, your employees that you value them, that you appreciate the work that you're doing. But to Kirsty's point, not every firm is in a position where they've got, excess profits that they can just dole out to their staff. So a few ways, we're working with a client right now where we've put together a very comprehensive associate retention plan. And I think the first part of that is communicating to your associates that you value them, that you want to invest in them, invest in their future. You want to help them develop into the best attorneys that they can be, and that you are going to put the full weight of your firm behind their professional development. And so we took that in a variety of different paths, one being helping them develop their own resume within the firm. So getting them in front of clients, exposing them to a variety of different client matters. You can put them up for different awards within the legal community to sort of get them, start establishing them as thought leaders, put them up for speaking engagements, writing blogs, writing various articles, helping to establish your associates as subject matter experts within their field, planning events for the firm. I've had firms that have done volunteer days together. We've had firms that are doing firm outings where they're doing some really nice swag bags and things like that, so that you're really letting your people know that you value them, you see that they are talented, you're going to invest in them, but help them be part of that process. Part of the associate retention plan we're working on is actually the managing partners are meeting with the associates to say, we see you growing into a senior associate role within the next 12 to 18 months. We're going to help you get there. Here is the blueprint. Here's the pathway to achieving that. So there are other ways that you can really invest in the culture and invest in the people, even if you don't have a lot of money that you can sort of throw towards that.
Yeah, thank you so much. You both actually brought up a lot of really good points. And I'll also add that many people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be proud of their firms. They want, you mentioned the swag bags, Lauren, like they want logos on, they want to walk around where they live with logos, and they want to be proud of where they work. So it's very hard to compete on numbers alone. Even if you have a big budget, if depending on the size of your firm, there's always someone out there with a bigger budget,
Right.
promising a bigger budget to your team. So if you can make sure that folks feel that they're compensated fairly, they're in market value, they're incentivized above and beyond that based on the behavior, and then they feel like they're part of a great team that really cares about them, that is something that really can make a difference and does make a difference.
And I've seen that even translate to business development. I'll talk with attorneys that are really sort of at a crossroads, not sure whether they or not they want to leave the firm. They're not really happy. And they essentially halt their business development efforts. Or if meeting, I've had people say to me, please don't connect me with anybody and don't refer me business right now. I'm not sure I'm going to stay with my firm, right? So if you don't
Wow.
feel proud of your firm, you're uncomfortable bringing clients in because well, how can you expect a client to stay if you yourself are unsure whether or not you want to stay with that firm?
Wow, that's something else. It's I'm sure that firm leaders wouldn't want to hear that that's happening behind the scenes. So it is good to know. So, what are some common culture challenges that law firms face as they grow, as well as during a merger situation? They might acquire a group or join another group. How can leaders spot the early warning signs?
I can take that one. I think whenever there is a change, right? I think a lot of times what happens is the leadership team will sort of close ranks and there will be just the vibe of the firm will change and people will you can hear it, there's sort of rumblings, there's musclings, and so that can be problematic when people feel like they don't know what's going on. There's certain information, certain decisions that need to be kept confidential at a management level. However, keeping the team somewhat in the know about what is going on can make such a huge difference. And again, law firm communities, it's a small world, right? And so people oftentimes will hear what's going on with their firm from somebody else outside the firm, and that can be just just will kill the culture within a firm if you feel like, oh, okay, so the partners are telling other people outside the firm, but they can't be bothered to tell me as an associate. That can be really detrimental because trust is then broken and it's incredibly hard to rebuild that.
Transparency are one of those things that a lot of our newer generation are looking towards when they are seeking employment at these firms. They want to know that it's not just the billable hour and the traditional way things are run. They want to know that there's a clear path, that there's transparency from the top down, understanding where things are going. And the moment a transition like this happens and communication stops, people start to question that. And that's genuinely a red flag. So you really want to watch out for that. And during these transitions, you want to be as open as possible, obviously notwithstanding what isn't privy to everyone else, but to be transparent and to share these changes with everyone in the firm so that they aren't taken aback, so that they felt like they are a part of the transition, that they are a part of the process, and that things aren't going to change.
One of my very good friends from law school was an associate at a firm, and the head of the department she worked for was a managing partner, and he would not let anybody know when he was going on vacation. His receptionist was not allowed to let anybody know that he was going on vacation because the thought was that if my staff know that I'm not going to be around, they won't work as hard. The message to everybody was, I don't trust you. It also created such a logjam because nobody could prepare for the fact that this person might be out of the office for 7 to 10 days and unavailable by phone or email. So if there were projects that all of a sudden would stall because, because the person just wasn't there, wasn't available, but you had no idea that that was coming.
That is an amazing story and an example of something that you can see occasionally in law firms that you don't see in most industries. So law firms are businesses like other businesses, but there are some nuances that are centric to law firms. And your example thankfully not a lot of law firms have that culture, but that is something that can come up. So on that topic, we started to talk about transparency, and how does transparency impact decisions, performance? How can a firm help be more transparent, build trust within their firm culture while knowing that there are certain things, as mentioned, that cannot be shared? What are some tips or tricks that our listeners can use if they want to be more transparent?
I think that when you're onboarding somebody new to the firm, really laying out the firm's process for what they do convey versus what they don't, so that you're bringing everybody in and so that they're on the same page. So for example, it's always tricky when somebody leaves a firm, right? Either because they've resigned, they've been terminated, and it creates an employment law issue. There's HR concerns. So there's a lot of times that information cannot be readily shared. But having a policy in place whereby you say, okay, anytime somebody leaves the firm, here is the firm protocol. We are going to let everybody know when that person's last day is, and that's it, right? On the advice of counsel or whatnot, we don't disclose anything surrounding why they're leaving. That is their story to tell if they want to, but we will announce it because we do want everybody to be in the know, be aware that this person is leaving, things like that. A lot of times firms don't want to share that information. They're worried that if somebody's leaving, then other people will want to leave. But I think it's being left in the dark that is creates more of a detriment to your culture than being upfront and honest about things like that. And I think saying also there are certain things that we cannot share, but we are going to share as much as we can. We want this firm to function well. And then really keeping an open door policy where your staff feels comfortable asking questions about going on. If they start to feel like something's in the works, that they do feel comfortable going to a managing partner and saying, hey, what's going on here? Understanding that you can't disclose everything.
And conversely, to the other end of the coin is once you make a hire, one of the biggest pitfalls in hiring is not having a clear path to success. So, in other words, hiring someone and not knowing what success looks like for that role. It's really, really important that when you bring someone on board, that you communicate what success looks like, that you communicate what achievement looks like, what their KPIs. And I know KPI is it can be such a double-edged sword, but essentially, what does success look like for this role? So that person can set out and achieve it. Without that clear definition, that clear pathway from start to success, that person is necessarily set up for failure. So it's really, really important that that is communicated from the get-go. You are transparent with it, and that is how you guide each new attorney at any stage from start to success, essentially.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will share, I know that that's like a passion project for Kirsty. You definitely do, um, live what you speak on that topic. And it has made a big difference with a lot of firms that do build out that structure. So next is, I'm curious, I'd love to hear from both of you on different generations. So we know we're all different, right? We have a few generations here on the call, and in your experience, how do generational differences impact how lawyers perceive or influence firm culture?
It really makes a big difference. I think Laurin and I can agree there as a point of departure. And I think, if I'm correct, Laurin and I have experienced both the younger and the older. I think what do you like to refer to it as when we were baby lawyers. We had the sort of top-down hierarchical billable hours, as you described, no real BD efforts. You are a strict attorney, and the bottom line is the bottom line. But I think we've also experienced the other end of the coin where, the qualitative criteria and measure of a person's abilities and contributions to a firm are also now being taken into account. And I think there's a big shift towards that and rewarding that. And we're seeing such a change in these modern law firms. There's making space, and I love to say this, making space for women, for young moms who still want to practice law, who don't want to choose the one or the other, who can get to have both, can work 8 till 3 and still make it to their child's like soccer match, or to collect them from nursery school. Like, I'm a mom myself, I completely understand that there needs to be space in this world for both. And we are seeing a lot of these firms coming through our doors who need the help to juggle it all. And they are promoting it within their ranks. They're saying, come to us, we'll help you succeed, but we'll also let you have a life outside of this. And we want to endorse and promote that. We don't want to just see you as a one-sided human being. And it's really great to see. And you'll see the results and the success and the abilities and the happiness of those attorneys will just triple.
I view the younger generation as being a little bit like a disruptor for the structure for law firms. And in many ways, I think it's a positive thing. When I think of sort of the old guard, the way I grew up, it was like, you've got to, you have to pay your dues, put the time in. There was this mindset of like, you're just lucky to be here. And I think that, we all bought into that. I was like, I am just lucky to be here. I will work as hard as possible and, whatever you want. And you're right. I am just lucky to be here. And I think this newer generation, I'm not sure that they really struggle with the imposter system the way previous generations have. They're sort of like, no, you're lucky that I am here. And I'm not going to sort of fall into that. I'm just lucky to be here, whatnot. So they are sort of pushing back a little bit and disrupting things and saying, you're lucky to have me here. There's a reason I'm here. I have a lot to bring to the table, and I'm here to learn, and I'm here to work hard. But there's also a different way to approach firm life balance. There's a different way to approach practicing law. Certainly before COVID, very few firms were open to having people work remotely. It would, up in New England, maybe if it was a blizzard, a hurricane, and, state emergency, even during state emergencies, I know firms that were like, we're still open. You need to come in here, right? And now I think one of the benefits of COVID, it showed adults do have the ability to self-monitor and work from home and be very productive, right? Especially if you have the right people in the right position. So this newer generation, they are sort of being disruptors a little bit. And I think what's going to happen is that you're going to see sort of the pendulum swing a little bit in the legal field, and just in terms of how firms are run. Into Kirsty's point, right? There are firms taking alternative approaches to billing, to hourly requirements, to we're seeing these firms emerge with this a pure eat what you kill, which is that there's no billable hour requirements. Every single person in the firm is 100% remote. Whatever you bill, you take a portion, a small portion goes to the firm overhead, and that's it, right? So we're seeing these alternative different structures form to accommodate more people, busy people, working mothers, things like that. People that have, with the baby boomers, right? You've got a lot of people right now that are raising children and now responsible for elderly parents, right? They are stretched very thin, and firms are recognizing we don't want to lose our talent because maybe they can't be in the office 12 to 15 hours a day anymore. How do we work around that and accommodate some of their scheduling needs, because they bring a lot of value to the firm? So it is nice to see some changes going on in the field.
Excellent. Thank you. It's interesting because most firms all have the same end goals, but there's different approaches to getting there. And Kirsty and Laurin just touched on those different ways. And I think it's important to note that. So anyways, this is bringing us to the end of our time together. We're running a little bit about over time. So does anyone have any advice that you've received, the best advice that you would like to share with our audience?
Sure, I'll chime in. Very early on in my legal career, and a partner I worked for who mentored me said, never come in and ask somebody a question that you have not already tried to answer yourself. And that advice has carried me through. And people are so appreciative when you go in and say, I've done X, Y, and Z to try to answer this question and I can't figure it out. Would you mind talking it through with me? People are much more appreciative. They don't feel like you're wasting their time. They don't feel like you're trying to get answers spoon fed. You have tried, you've put in the time, you still can't get to the answer. It really goes a long way in terms of building relationships with the people who are mentoring you and who are in many ways decide your fate within a firm when it comes to promotion, raises, bonuses, and things like that.
That's
I like that.
yeah, I do too. That's excellent advice. And you're also taking them into account. You're saying, hey,
Yeah.
I value your time. I spend some time so that I don't need to give this to you, so you need to address it.
Exactly.
So here we are. So that wraps up today's episode of the Law Firm Lab. A very big thank you to Kirsty and Laurin for sharing your insights on what truly shapes a law firm's culture and why it matters now more than ever. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes where we'll continue exploring how law firms can grow smarter, scale sustainably, and lead with clarity. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Law Firm Lab.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.